now I'm going to turn to Beachwood City, and Bob Harvest and his team have been all very, very patient. And again, hopefully some of you can hang around. It's 2 minutes after 3 o'clock. And Bob, why don't you take it away?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, first of all, and we are honored to be to have been invited to present. We are going to, in a moment, my colleague next to me, Kevin Houchins, is going to take over the screen and put up our slides. And what I can tell you while we're waiting to get that up there is just the first thing you're going to see is a meeting number with something called Slido. And so for any of you that are interested, you can go on to the internet on your phones or on your laptops in front of you to Slido, SLIDO.com. We'll give you a meeting number. And what you can do is go into the audience Q&A, which is should be available right there. And just as we present, type in questions or comments there. Please make sure to put your email in it so that if we do run out of time today, and you can see Kevin's presenting now. Well, maybe if it's not, you can share our presentation with Carolyn Jones. Okay. Looks like, yeah, you're on there. Can you bring up the, give it a second here, maybe it'll show up on there. So as we go, if you type into the Q&A any questions, leave us your email. Even if we run out of time today, we will be able to get back to you after the presentation. So let me start by saying this. All right, we're hoping it'll show up now. There we go. And is the meeting number on there? Yep, there we go. Okay, there we go. So when you get to Slido.com, type in those 6 digits, 6 numbers, and you'll be just essentially brought to a chat room, but it'll be left in our hands and we'll be able to get back to you. We in Beachwood, we're proud of our efforts, but to be very honest, we don't feel that we have a lot to brag about. Today, we're going to speak to areas where we've made a lot of effort and hope that what we're seeing is correlated progress because of that. I have 3 highly valued colleagues with me. One is online and 2 are sitting in the room with me. They will be presenting as we go, and albeit very briefly for each of us, on areas that they've taken a lead in our district. Linda Logalbo is logged in remotely. She is the Beachwood's Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Kevin Houchins to my left is our Director of Equity and Community Engagement. And Dr. Ken Vion is Beachwood's Assistant Superintendent. In our district, we have maintained a focus on 3 areas for several years now. And we've tried as best we can to align our resources, our programming, and our professional development to them. And those 3 areas are student achievement, intercultural awareness, and mental health. We recognize, I'm sure all of you are probably thinking, well, those are huge, overarching areas. Yes, they are. We also, every day and every year that we've been focused on them, find how overlapping those areas are and also intersecting. And so what we find is progress in one leads to progress in the others. We're trying to get better about recognizing those areas of overlap and plan around them strategically so we can avoid planning for them in silos. Today, we're going to present briefly about 5 initiatives where we have made changes to district practices and or developed new programs and dedicated our resources. We're going to talk about our professional development for both our administrators very specifically, but also our staff more widely across the district. We're going to talk about formative assessment, access for students to accelerated and gifted programming, our hiring practices, and lastly, our efforts around community engagement. I'm going to turn things over to Kevin Houchins regarding professional development first. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So the first thing you're going to see is I got a slide up from our professional development, which we are very fortunate to have a world-renowned expert on implicit bias, and Jennifer Everhart, who is the class of 1984 graduate of Beachwood High School. She's also working at Stanford University, and everyone, you know, she's been on from Oprah to CNN. They're always utilizing her. But what a great fortune for us to have one of our graduates who actually came back in. She visited our school. We had her come in 3 times to visit our school to work with not only our teachers and our students and our administration, but we also had time for her to come in and work with our parents. In addition, we had a meeting in which she actually worked with both our administration and our local government. All these things are very important in terms of making systemic changes to our district, and it was important that everyone in our entire community be a part of the changes that we wanted to make here in Beachwood at the high school and all of our schools in the district. One of the other things we did, and I'm going to be fairly brief because I know time is going to be short for everybody. I don't want to extend things too much. So I'll talk about another program we use, which is called Point-Made Learning. Point-Made Learning was another one of our professional developments, and we took our entire staff, and I mean our entire staff, whether it be a custodial person or a teacher or administrator or a bus driver. It didn't matter who it was. We took our entire program through this training because it is very important for them to understand how to interact with difference. And that was one of the focal points of all the work we did, was trying to get people to understand what they bring to the table from their own bias and what issues are presented when they have to deal with people that are different. The Point-Made Learning software, the program we use with Point-Made Learning, it focuses on a group of New York teenagers who come together, as 16 of them. It's available online. I highly recommend utilizing it. And these young people come together from all different walks of life from the different boroughs in New York City. And they learn about how they interact with each other, and they learn about their similarities and their differences and their struggles. It's a great program, and I highly recommend any school district to use it. One of the other things we had our staff go through, our administrators go through, was the REI groundwater training. And this was really eye-opening for all of us, and I say all of us because I'm included in this, because it helped us identify the difference between things that we need to do in terms of individually programming for our kids, but how do we make systemic changes? One of the things that we did as a district, and I'm very proud of, was the fact that when everyone was making their statements last year after the George Floyd murder, everyone was talking about what they were going to do, but we were already ahead of the game in terms of what we were already doing. But one of the statements in there is that we challenged our staff, everyone in our district, our board challenged them to dismantle systemic racism. And they made it a priority for not just the administration, but for every employee in the district. And so we kind of charge everyone here with that responsibility of when you see it, say something, and we need to make the systemic changes that are necessary to get our district going in the appropriate direction so that all people feel like they belong and they're seen, heard, and valued in our district. This was followed by some training that I personally created called The Power of Silence. And it really works upon how silence can be good, how it can be bad, and how you use it to benefit an organization. And so that was a really eye-opening presentation that we did together as an administrative team. And it's something that we're going to take to the rest of our staff this coming school year because of the impact that it had on our administrative team. And it's just a brief statement about it was that what we wound up doing is we wound up talking about how to respect each other and how we can make ourselves better as an organization by respecting, letting silence have a turn. So instead of over talking each other and everyone wanted to be in control, we want to allow people to have a turn and everyone gets a turn to speak. And that's sometimes a challenge when you're dealing with a lot of people who are used to being in control. So that's just a brief part of it. You have to buy off this later. No, I'm just kidding. All right, next we'll turn it over to Linda Legabo. She's going to talk about some other work we've done.
Thanks, Kevin. Next slide. Perfect. This past summer, we delved into some studies for our staff. These were voluntary, and all staff members participated, from custodians to bus drivers them a choice. We're really big in the idea that people are at different places on this learning continuum of how to meet the needs for our students. And so these are some of the titles that we offered last summer for, again, for our staff members to do a voluntary book club. And we had a great turnout. I think we had about 100 staff members participate in these book clubs this past summer. And the staff also led these, they were staff-led. So the administrators kind of took a step back and allowed the staff to decide what books they wanted to study, gather them, and organize them into like staff members. And got some positive dialogue in the summer, even before school started. When school started, we wanted to be focused and intentional with developing culturally relevant classrooms. So Kevin and I worked with our English language arts department, and we examined and did an audit of our curriculum. We based this work in Dr. Rudine Bishop out of Ohio State University. Her famous quote is that we want books to be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors for our student population. And so we went to all of our teachers, K through 12, that are teaching English language arts, and asked them to take a serious look at their curriculum to see if our curriculum were windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. So we examined for a whole variety of things: gender, race, family structure, differing ability, socioeconomic status. And as I would say, it was the second or third meeting that we had with our teachers as we did this year-long study, they were starting to self-identify, oh, this is where we have gaps. We don't have very many positive female characters. We don't have enough Asian characters. When we're representing African-American characters, are they represented in a positive light, or is there always a history of oppression, slavery, or criminal action associated with those characters? So we had a lot of very good discussions, and now this summer our staff are working on bringing in new titles to diversify. Next year, we're going to do the same process with social studies. So again, we'll work with all the teachers K through 12 that are teaching social studies. We'll take a look at our curriculum and our state standards and look for opportunities to bring in diverse resources and text for that curriculum. So we're very passionate about having students see themselves in our curriculum, and by going subject area by subject area and being deliberate through it, we're hoping that we can become better at providing that for our students. So next slide.
Yep. Thank you. So one of the things that we've been doing for professional development also over the last, I think 5 years is talking about the formative assessment process. And so we wanted to develop a common understanding with our teachers to implement this process and help them realize formative assessment isn't just a thumbs up, thumbs down assessment, but it's a process. So we wanted teachers to know that they had to collect data in a variety of methods. And then we wanted them to analyze, and I'm just giving a quick overview of this. We wanted them to analyze the data, and we wanted them to provide feedback that's written, oral, but very descriptive, so the students know exactly what that feedback means. And then we wanted to adjust the students' learning. So the question is there an opportunity for enrichment, clarification? Do we need to explain something differently? And some students just need a little more time on task. And so we tried to develop this process so we know exactly where students are in their learning. We learned that students may be accelerated beyond the level of what's being assessed, and that some students may not have the prerequisite information as we go through these short processes to do check-ins with students. So we wanted to get to know our students academically on an individual basis. So through this process, we've been able to better identify where students are in their learning continuum, adjust instruction accordingly, and to meet the needs of each student. But then to take it to the next level,
other things instructionally that we've been looking at for several years now is this access to accelerated and gifted classes. Very similar. One of the things we took a look at is we used to use a verbal-based assessment to determine superior cognitive gifted. We changed to the NAACP nonverbal assessment, the NAT for gifted identification. The NAACP is have said or is recommended for reducing bias in terms of students that have access to good instruction before school or having those strong verbal skills. So we made that change about 5 years ago. We also applied the gifted cluster service model in lieu of a self-contained gifted classroom program. We used to have it in grades 4 and 5, and now we moved to the cluster model. So not only can we serve the gifted students with this high level of instruction, we can also place other kids in the cluster classroom. And we're very deliberate about what students we choose to put in the cluster classroom. And finally, the creation of enrichment and acceleration programs in math has been a long-going practice for us. We started acceleration or compacting the curriculum in grade 4, but what we've done is created multiple entry points in a variety of grade levels. We recognize some students are ready at different times. So we can't determine who gets to go to BC Calculus by their 3rd grade Iowa scores or the performance. So because of that, we've created this multiple entry point system where students can enter into the accelerated program at variety grade levels. First opportunity is 3rd grade. We have another opportunity in 4th and 5th grade, in 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grade. With this acceleration, we also know that students need support to get there. So we've created some summer bridge programs for the students to make up some content, support the students so that they can access the accelerated curriculum. In terms of numbers-wise, over 50, close to 60% of our middle school students are in some kind of form of an accelerated math, science, or English language arts class. Because of all this work we've been doing at the early elementary grade, with a particular focus on students of color, to have our classrooms that are advanced and accelerated mirror our student population, in having those students of color have opportunities to participate in summer bridge programs that allow them support so that they can access the curriculum and move on into accelerated classes. We're very proud of that work, and we continue to improve and do that work.
So one of the things, and I heard Dr. Wagner talk about hiring, people from underrepresented groups also, and we've had this as a focus area for several years. And so we recognize that the diversity of our staff doesn't reflect the diversity of our students in the classroom. We've acknowledged that it's not always easy to recruit people of color, but we do have students in our classroom that look like the United Nations, and so we made a conscious effort to diversify our staff. And so I just wanted to talk about a few things that we've done. To start, we're advertising more. Years ago, we had the mentality of people will come to us if they want to work in Beachwood, and we realized that wasn't diversifying our staff. So we advertise in different places, HBCUs. We share postings with Cleveland State's University of College and Urban Affairs, social media sites, LinkedIn, Twitter. We use Handshake, which clears the postings with colleges in the U.S. actually. We share our postings with staff and hoping that our staff are able to share. And then we have a Grow Your Own program with Ursuline College also. So the more we can get the word out about the postings, the wider net will staff from underrepresented groups. So then going into the interview process, we've had consistent questions, and that way we feel that will help reduce bias, especially when we have internal candidates. So it's sort of, it's easy to hire an internal person, but continuing to hire the substitute teacher that's always around or the tutor isn't going to help diversify our staff. And just because people are comfortable with them, and it's easy to be comfortable, but we push, so there's a little discomfort at times. The process, the process that we have helps us find the best candidate, which included a number of staff members directly from groups. So that the questions on our application, actually, we revolve around cultural competency, work ethic, relationships. These are essential skills that we value in the district. During our interview process, we include staff, other staff, not just admin, in the second round to bring different perspectives to the table to help reduce or eliminate bias as much as possible and ensure that we're finding the best candidate. It's much easier if I just went into the interview, I interview people, I make a choice and move on. That's the easy route. But to find the best candidate, we need a variety of perspectives in that process. We want to hear their opinions, gain insight to what people hear, and in the questions or answers. So the perspectives of the staff members included in the second round, we pick a variety of staff members. It could be, because of their race, religion, they're part of a LGBTQ community, content knowledge experts, they're a veteran teacher, or they went through the process. They're a new hire in the past 2 years. So we do value their perspectives that they bring, and it's worked out really, really well for us in our hiring process. And then talking about our questions that we use in the interview process, again, hopefully to reduce or eliminate bias, we developed them with 5 areas in mind. You can see them on the screen. All of our questions revolve around work ethic, relationships, cultural competence, instructional knowledge, and content knowledge. These are things that we feel is really important. And then all the questions help us rate the candidate to find the best person. And I could share more and more, but I'm going to, talking about attracting, hiring, retaining staff, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Houchins about retaining staff after we get them in the door.
Thanks, Ken. One of the things that's really important is that, it's not enough that you actually get them in. You got to keep them. And as we've been working really hard, in particular over the last few years, particularly we had quite a deal of stuff last year. I think we had 7 of the 8 hires. We don't have a lot because we're a small district, but 7 of the 8 hires we had last year were from underrepresented groups. And that's something that we're proud of. But the thing is that we got to keep them. And so part of what we've been doing is a lot of effort has been put into staff retention. One of the efforts that we do is that we make sure they have access to central office administrators. So myself, personally, I meet with all of our new hires once a month to talk about what's going well, what's not, things I can help them with. This has proved to be really beneficial for us to get feedback in terms of our onboarding process and just different things that they find out throughout the school year. One of the things that happens with a lot of schools is that they talk early but not later. And a lot of times when you talk to people, they don't know what they don't know. So you got to kind of give them an opportunity to really get an understanding, get a grasp of the organization before you actually start asking them the right questions. And again, before the end of this school year, I made sure that I met with each one of them, and they gave me a lot of specific things that they want to do in terms of their growth and development, which is awesome. Because not only do we want to maximize them and have them bring their full self to our district, and we want to help them achieve the goals that they have, whether that be an administration, department chair, whatever it may be. We're trying to help our staff go there, and that was something Ken talked about in terms of our Grow Your Own program too. The other thing we're doing is, to actually bring a picture, is we've had an African-American teacher affinity group. And this particular group, this is just some of our teachers. We met together and we cooked a meal because one of our African-American teachers is actually over our culinary arts program and the Excel Tech program. And so it was a really great time for us to kind of connect together. They talk about breaking bread, but even better than that was the fact that we actually made the meal together. So that added an extra level of protectiveness for us as a group. And that has been followed up with. It's been a little bit more difficult because of COVID, but I will tell you that that group, we have met a few times virtually, and this year, now that things are opening back up, I'm looking forward to having them meet together regularly once a month for our regular meetings in which we can discuss issues that may impact our African American staff and their retention. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is like my favorite thing, and it's the fun part of my job, and that's community engagement. So first of all, it's really important to know that Beachwood took the effort to actually create a position for someone like me as a director of equity community engagement. That was a very important step for them in terms of making the commitment level to having someone at an administrative level, at central office level, that had the ability to hold the district accountable. That's a big deal. Like, a lot of people talk about doing this work, but they don't want to actually be held accountable. And that's one of the things that they have given me the freedom to do in creating a position. One of the things they did was make sure that I don't have a lot of layers. So the person that I answer directly to is the superintendent. I don't have to answer to a lot of different people who may cause me to not be able to operate in the district the way I need to. So creating this position was one of the other things I would tell you was really important. And the community engagement piece of it is something that I really thrive on personally, and I really love. So let's talk about it. So one of the first things I created when I got hired to this position was I created this community equity engagement team. And it was very important because in Beachwood, each of our buildings have a different personality, and they have different needs. So we didn't just create one team and just say, okay, it's okay to just do this. We said, no, we want to create an equity engagement team, and it got all the players together. So we created an equity engagement team for teachers, one for parents, and then another one for students. The only place we don't have one of the equity teams in place is in our K-2 building for our preschool. Not quite sure if they would be able to contribute to that. So, but I will tell you, and just being honest and transparent, which I like to be, is the fact that the Hilltop building, which is our 3 to 5 building, initially we weren't going to have an equity team there. But I will tell you that when Dr. Eberhardt visited, and myself too, she actually used these kids because they were so bright, had so much, and so understood what they wanted to see in their classroom and what they wanted to see in their education. And it was beautiful. And you'll get to see that in a few minutes. I'll show you a picture. But at the end of the day, we also use this equity engagement team to help us make a lot of decisions. For example, everyone was worried about COVID and what we were going to do. We kind of were ahead of the game with a lot of people because we used these teams to give us feedback on what they wanted. So we had far less complaints than I think we would have had we not involved all of our stakeholders in the process. So we had them meet with doctors and people from the Cuyahoga County Board of Health to help us make the appropriate decisions for Beachwood and the beach building. And that was one of the things that was important because we didn't do the same thing in each of the buildings, across the district. We had different things to meet the needs of different levels of our students and our families' needs for during this COVID time. In addition, one of the projects we're working on right now is we're working on this community standard of free speech. And this team, we're putting together some of the things you see at the bottom with this district equity team. And we're including a lot of different people from a lot of different places, such as, counselors, building administrators, secretaries. We're bringing all the players into the table so we can talk about how we want to address free speech in Beachwood as a community and what is acceptable and what is not. And so that's one of the challenges to make sure that we do have, Beachwood is one of the things we always talk about as being diverse. And that is also not, sometimes you have a difficulty coming to a shared meaning of what is respect. And so this community standard of free speech is what we want to talk about as a district. We want to create so that everyone feels as though I was a part of it, I created it, and I will accept it when someone calls me. And this is not something we want to talk about just for the classroom. It's also for the interaction of our staff members, administrators, and also for fans. When people come to our community to come to an event, whether it be a sporting event or one of our concerts, or maybe a play, we want to make sure that everyone understands in Beachwood this is what is acceptable and it can hold out, reduce conflict. So this is the part y'all been looking at all these words and numbers and all that and everything like that. but you want to see people and you want to see them work. At least that's what I wanted to see. So I put it in the presentation. So what you'll see here is actually our students are the student equity engagement team from Hilltop. And most of these kids are in the 5th grade, or were in the 5th grade in this picture was taken. They're meeting with Dr. Everhart and their principal, and they're discussing their issues and getting their points across about what they think equity looks like in the schools. And then other picture to the right, you'll see this is the student equity engagement team from the high school, and they're also meeting with Dr. Everhart. Now, the students, and then you'll see the young lady sitting to the right of Dr. Everhart. She actually spearheaded our movement last year, in which we did something that no one else, we didn't see a lot of people doing, because we had a rally for educational equity in which our students led. And this high school student there sitting next to Dr. Everhart, she was one of the students who spearheaded this movement. And we had a crowd of families come in to our stadium. We did social distancing, and our students told our community what they wanted from education. Now, cool part was they did such a great job. We actually brought them back in for our convocation this year and let them tell our teachers what they want. And they told their story about what education has been like for them as minority students in our district. And it really put at the hearts of some of our teachers. And it also struck some chords that weren't so good, because people were like, man, I thought I was doing a great job. What else do I do? Cool part was we were there to meet with them. We took these equity engagement teams, and one of the teams you'll see here is like our teacher equity engagement team. We took that teacher equity engagement team and took them through the point-made learning and had some meaningful conversations about how they could address systemic issues and their own bias in their classroom in order to make this opportunity better for all of our kids. To the left, you'll see our parent equity engagement team from one of our buildings. This is Bryden. You'll see that this is a very diverse group of parents. We have parents who represent everything, low socioeconomic. One of the parents is African. We have parents, Jewish, Orthodox Jewish parent. We have people from the LGBTQ community on it. So this is a diverse group of families we can get, and we have them across the board. And that way, that representation that everybody wants is there in place for everyone. Next, you'll see one of the other things that's super fun is the student engagement part of what I really love to do. And I heard you all ask questions, and I'm actually pretty pleased to show you some of these slides here. And what you'll see, one is a picture of our Max Scholars at graduation. And we took the Max Scholars program. We started with about 5 kids. And the last year before COVID, it was a total of around 75 to 80 kids who attended Max Scholars on a regular basis. And in a few minutes, I'll show you some of the things that we did with Max Scholars. But one of the bigger things we did with Max Scholars is we had the advisor for National Honor Society come in and talk to them about being members of National Honor Society. And what you see here is one of our African-American athletes for Beachwood, who actually was a recipient of, who was inducted in the National Honor Society of this school year. And that was a big, huge place, because you'll see the kids here, like when people think of Beachwood, they think of high achieving, but we also have a gap. And one of the ways we've been improving that gap is trying to have our kids more understanding about access to higher education classes, which Linda talked about a few minutes ago. Next, you'll see this is one of the aspects that we have done is that we've taken the kids on trips. So our Max Scholars, we take them so they can engage and feel proud of themselves. So what you see here is one of the aspects of we take this yearly trip where we visit a museum or a couple of museums, and we also go to visit HBCUs. And the other picture to the right, and actually going to the left, is in front of the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. on our D.C. trip. And we had a group of kids we had a wonderful time there. Over that weekend, we visited the museum. We also went to see, at that time, Black Panther came out. We went to that movie. We went to visit 3 HBCUs. We went to Morgan State. We went to Coppin State, and we went to Howard. And as a result, it has been very beneficial for our kids to be on college campus and to change their aspirations. And one of the things for Beachwood kids in particular was to, experience the African diaspora in terms of how they wanted to go to school. And it was important for them. They found this important once they started visiting these colleges. So the other thing you'll see is our young ladies, they went to an event here in Cleveland sponsored by Tri-C. It's called as opposed to having the guys there. And we're also looking forward this year, we're looking forward to having some better, more opportunities for our guys. But we have also taken our young men to the African American Male Summit at the University of Akron. That's been another way we've engaged our students. The next thing you'll see here is us visiting, in addition to our DC trip, another year we went to visit Tennessee. And that year we went to the Muhammad Ali Museum on that trip in Louisville, Kentucky, and we went to the Underground Railroad Museum in Cincinnati also during that trip. We visited Tennessee State, Fisk, and McGuire while we were in Nashville, Tennessee. You'll see our students there. You'll notice that the group is growing. That was a part of the process. Now, I hold these kids accountable. They had to help fundraise, and they also had to have attendance and participation in Max College activities and discipline issues and stuff like that. This is a positive benefit for us all the way around because our kids really saw the benefit. And what transpired, the year we visited Tennessee State, we had 11 students go to our HBCU that year. And now one of the things I haven't talked about, which I'm really, really proud of, is the fact that, and I thought I had a slide for that, but I didn't include it, was the fact that a lot of our kids have received full scholarships to HBCU. A lot of their merit-based scholarships for kids from Beachwood, they should be able to meet those numbers, and that's one of the things I've been pushing on our kids. Now, one of the better benefits out of that whole thing is getting that full scholarship is it changes economics for their family. Because now their kids don't have to worry about having money to go to school, because when they come out of college, they're not going to be with debt. And we've had kids go to Tennessee State, we have kids go to Howard, we have kids at Shaw, we have kids at North Carolina A&T, Alabama State, we have them all over the country. FAMU, they're everywhere. And I believe this is in part due to our efforts in trying to expose our students to HBCUs. That's been a large part of our success in the program. And so that is one of the last things I'll get to is one of our final steps that we've been in recently. And that is our banner project. And you'll see here, these are banners that we have up at each of our buildings. I think it's roughly 70 or 75 banners up throughout the entire district. And we feature, these are the banners from our Black History Month, which is the first month we kicked them off. And it has been so beneficial for our entire community in that people have seen, looked at the banners and say, I didn't know this person, who is this person? And then they go home and research it. And then on top of that, we had our classroom teachers start using the people who appeared on the banners to connect kids in the classroom. And not only do we do it for, each month is different. So last month was Asian American Heritage Month. This month is our Hometown Heroes, in which we have pictures of our students and our local community leaders. This month, we've had Arab American Month. We had Women's History Month. And it has become a sense of pride for everyone in our community based on the work that we've done, because it's a visual representation of who we are as a district, as we are diverse, and we want everyone to know it when they come visit our schools. So whether you're there for a sporting event or whatever it may be, we want everyone to know who we are as the Beachwood City Schools. I got, trying to make sure I don't miss anything, because one of the other things that's really cool is that we also we have some nice partnership. In addition to the partnership with Ursula College, we also partnered with one of our local temples. And we're having like a cultural exchange program in which the group of kids from our Max Scholars are meeting with a group of kids, a team group from the temple, and they are learning about each other's culture. And this is helping us in terms of learning about difference and how we interact with each other. This group, we're also planning to take, and again, these kids from the temple, we're doing a cultural exchange, so we're going to take them on our trips so they can learn about HBCU and about African American history too. So, and then we'll go and visit some of their cultural things too. So, like our first trip is planned to be Washington, D.C. Because of the Holocaust Museum and some of the other items that we'll be able to share in this trip. But then we also plan on having a big trip in which we plan on going to South. And the student participation in these activities is really significant, and it is making a difference in our kids and how they connect and how they see each other. But I will tell you, this is the last thing, one of the last things we're going to highlight is the work that we have done with this one group I call BC. And it's this Faculty Engagement Network. It's a group of students who represent all different walks of life, whether it be some kids may be LGBTQ, Pakistani, Indian. I mean, just anything you think of. This is a group of kids with African American females, there's white females, there's everyone in there. There's Jewish kids, there's Muslim kids, there's everything. And this group came together and they bonded and they did an amazing job of helping each other find the understanding of what they had in different, but the thing they were surprised by was how much they had in common. And that some of the same issues they had, especially some of our Pakistani girls, they were sharing with some of our Black girls. The colorism is an issue with them too. And so the challenges that they all faced was really, it was great to be involved in this. And this group was very instrumental in pushing me and helping them get in front of our parents. We've been looking for a way for our kids to engage our parents. And these young ladies wound up saying, Ms. Houghton, we want to talk to our parents and let them know what we really want to engage them. I mean, from our school district in terms of education. And so that worked out really well. That has been amazing. I'm really touch on really quick couple other things. We've also engaged with our alumni, using our illustrious alumni to support our recent grads and taking them along. So recently we had one of our grads is a comedian. His name is David Arnold. Go see him. He's really funny. He's also on Netflix. He connected with one of our recent grads from Ohio State, and he had to move to Los Angeles, and he is currently working for him at Nickelodeon. And he is, and what we were doing is we're trying to build those connections to help our kids along their career. And what David said to us was that it took him 20 years to get to the point where he was. He said for the young man that he just took in, it will hopefully just take him 5, because he was going to be that brand to help him get into, a successful career. And then finally, one of the things, and I didn't have a picture here, but I wish I did, is the last thing is our new student group. Really proud of that. Our new student group is for all our new students, because when they come into Beachwood, there's different things. And we don't assume that every kid knows everything about Beachwood, whether it be technology or just how our classes operate, because we have some weird schedules sometimes. And we introduce Beachwood to them. We start off by teaching them technology to make sure that they can operate all these technology things that their teachers expect them to be able to operate. And then each month we have a different department. Each week, we have a different department coming in. So one week it'll be the English department, next week it'll be the social studies department, and they offer individual time with the teachers for them to tutor our kids, our new students, to help them catch up or help them understand anything that they need, any type of help they need. Now, one of the additional benefits of this is we also recruit our National Honor Society students to participate, and they also offer us tutors for our new students, so we help engage them as they come into our district. So I am wrapped up. I know I said a lot, but we want to open up the opportunity. I know we had a lot of questions. Thank you all for using Slido. We've been answering as many questions as we could along the way. Let's see what else we have in here for us.
Great. Let's take a couple questions then. Tom, you want to get us started?
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. And if you ever need a speaker for the African American Teacher Affinity Group, I'm available and hungry and I'll be there. But the question about Jennifer Eberhardt, could you share with us, not right now, but at some point, I know you have a book, because most of the books you mentioned are on my bookshelf, but her book is a good one. But maybe an article or two that the group can read. Part of our assignment and work is to read some articles. If you have an article or two by Jennifer Eberhardt that you think this group needs to read, would you share that with Apollo so we can read it?
Yeah, that would be great. And I'll share that.
That's all.
Let's ask a couple more questions of Beachwood. And please raise your hands.
So I think one of the questions here while we're waiting is how long has the equity position been in the district? It's been here for 2 years.
Say it again. Did you say 4 years?
2.
2 years. 2 years. Yes. Excellent. Jimma McWilson, go ahead. Jimma, I can't hear you.
Yeah, this is Jimma. My question is, what is your per pupil operating budget on an annual basis?
16,000.
And based on that, your median income in Beachwood is what, around 100,000?
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw that. Yeah, I think it's slightly less than that, like maybe around 90, 95,000, but you're real close.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that question, and there are two questions. The first one is this reason. One of the things that we're looking at is the issue of socioeconomic status, per pupil operating costs, how much is actually spent in the classroom itself, how much is actually spent outside of the classroom. And the definition of some of which you have covered are those expensive things which kids sometimes don't necessarily, all of them don't have access to. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with your students, specifically African-American students, how many of them do you think enjoy the extracurricular activities and the extracurricular things within the community that would help them achieve at an even higher level?
Boy, that's a tough question, and also to boil it down. So, I mean, I'll throw out, and any of my colleagues can disagree with me. I'll say 8 out of 10, and I don't really know what I mean by that, except to say that I think we see a high participation in all sorts of extracurricular activities in Beachwood, including some of the things, for example, that Mr. Houchin spoke about, like the Max Scholars and the trips, etc.
Right.
There are definitely, so while we have that, I would say that some of our widest socioeconomic divides exist within our African-American student population. So some of our, I guess I would say what I see, and I've seen over the years, the dynamic within our Black student and Black family population is that while many have been in Beachwood for a long time, and the parents are white collar professionals, and there are some very distinct, for example, achievement gaps that we see with that population that are pretty damning of our school system. We also see that some of our, that another percentage of our African American families tend to be, to have moved into Beachwood as the students are older. And so we see, very distinct issues that we have to adjust for as a school system to, say, new high schoolers and sometimes new middle schoolers who are African American. And the socioeconomics of that are prevalent as well. So often we'll see that perhaps a family that does not have the means of, let's say, the more typical, whatever that is, typical Beachwood family, has moved here sometimes in middle or high school. And so we will then be presented with, families that have an issue with funding some of the experiences that other students may take for granted in Beachwood. And so we try to find a way then to utilize funds from, say, our PTO or our own school budget to ensure that there's equity and participation. And we try to do that in a way that doesn't violate the family's dignity as well.
Right. I asked that question because of Beachwood's higher socioeconomic status, some at the lower area use socioeconomics as a reason they can't enrich, enhance, accelerate through compensatory mechanisms of the type that you are speaking of. So when you see all the enrichment things that he was speaking of, which under normal circumstances, all kids may not have access to, a lot of people are not looking at the intra-racial economic dynamics within the African-American community. And I thought Beachwood has a very clear set of those particulars. And I'm glad you were able to articulate it, because I think it will help people at the lower level that get more money per student, and yet they do not provide those enhancements, enrichments, and accelerations in order to compensate for the various things that you do as a normal.
Great observation there, Jimma. Appreciate it. Ship, you have a question?
Yes, sir, I did. I had a question and a statement. To Kevin, great job. Great job explaining that and articulating. The position has been in place for 2 years. How did that make you feel? And did your school district come at you to fill that position? Again, from grow your own and being in the school district and creating that district, or excuse me, creating that position for you to help along with the journey. How did that make you feel? I'm just curious. Not to mention sitting right next, or superintendent sitting right next to you. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, fortunately for me, I've always been active, you know, in the district, and so I had a relationship. I kind of had an interesting job. But part of my job was in the building. Part of it was doing work video-wise for the district. So it enabled me to have and this is again kind of going back to the theory behind why African American staff members need to have access to central office staff. Yes. I did. It helped the transition for me. It helped me be able to show them, and they could see the kind of person I was, and the work that I was doing with kids to identify that I was the person for this particular position. At least I think that's the case. In addition, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, a great deal of responsibility for this also is we have one of our parent groups. One of our parents groups is very instrumental in making sure and requesting about and meeting with and working with Dr. WilliAnn and Dr. Hardis in establishing the needs of the African American community, and one of them was this particular position. And I was just very fortunate that, well, I'm gonna say two things. I was fortunate and I was smart enough to be prepared. You know, I think that was one of the bigger things for me, was that I prepared myself in terms of going back to school, which is not always easy. We've got a family and other things going on. But I put myself in a position where I could receive that opportunity. And I think for me, that is one of the things I try to emphasize to other people, is you never know an opportunity is going to come, but you have to put yourself in a position to get it. And for me, I was very happy that the work that they recognized how hard I work as a person, and my commitment to equity, which has always been this way in this district. And I was just very happy that they saw that in me. And so I feel like the best thing I can tell you is that when I work in this district and the work that I do, I'm walking in my purpose for life. And I know that every day. And I don't know what else I could say in terms of making it seem like it was better. Know to walk with your purpose.
Yep. Well done, and hats off to Beachwood for putting their money where their mouth is.
And it really comes out in your passion for the work. All right, we're about a half hour over, so I really appreciate your patience and indulgence. I want to thank, again, all three districts, Beachwood and Licking Heights and Steubenville. Again, thanks to the Beachwood team for the excellent presentation. We will collect the PowerPoint slides and make sure those are distributed to members. So a couple of things. We did not have a chance to process what we heard today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Google Doc that's something like what I heard today. And I may take some liberties in terms of some major categories or something like that, but then ask each of you task force members to reflect on some of your key takeaways based on the conversations that you heard today, because we have to begin processing what we heard and synthesizing it in a way that allows us to talk about how do we frame the different kinds of actions that we've heard about, how do we coalesce around what best academic practice models look like, and that part of the work. So look for a link to a Google Doc that is going to have a little bit of structure to it, but otherwise we'll ask you to reflect on what you heard. The other thing is that our next meeting is July 16th, 12:30 to 3 o'clock. Again, I look forward to having probably at least one, maybe two additional school presentations, and then maybe beginning to bring in some, some national players who have done some work in this area as well. Again, to continually inform our synthesis and our thoughts about this framing. I'll also, as you saw between our last meeting and this one, I sent out a couple emails, as Tom Roberts mentioned, with some reading material. We may be ready to put some subcommittees together, so we'll ask for your feedback about that. And again, in the interest of continuing to move the work forward and leverage the great expertise that is here around the table. Are there any questions or final comments before we end the meeting? If not, I just want to say one more time, thank you for your support. Thank you for indulging this meeting today. Keep up the great work you do each and every day, and we look forward to our continued journey forward. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend.
All right. Thank you.
And happy Juneteenth.
Bye-bye.